Yo, I'm Kenneth.
And I'm Amber.
And welcome to the
Now Concerning podcast.
We are so excited you'll be joining us today.
We are, and we are going to dive into conversations with our family and friends all about how they've seen God move in their lives.
Let's tune in to the show. So we have Julian here today, who's jumping in with us. He's the owner of Hard Axe Lounge. Julian, this is our second take. Welcome to the wonderful, you're telling me, welcome to the wonderful world of podcasting. I'm like, dude, I'm ready to throw the computer out the window because this is some tough stuff. So you mind just talking to us about what you do, what it is, Hard Axe Lounge is, and some of the backstory behind it?
Sure. So we are the Treasure Coast's first and only World Axe Throwing League certified axe throwing all ages venue. What that means is the World Axe Throwing League is the world's governing body for the professional sanctioned sport of axe throwing.
Yeah.
For short, you can call it the WATL.
Yeah.
So we opened up back in July of 2020, not by choice, due to pandemic. We got the building in October of 2019, started working on it. And then obviously COVID hit and it got kind of crazy. And we were then scheduled to open on March 27th. COVID hit. We had to push our open date back to July.
Yeah.
And we've been open ever since. And it's a total blessing.
Yeah. When we went in there as a church, I took a picture of my first Bullseye. I have it on my phone still. I sent it to my wife. That was one of the most thrilling things. So I was scared at first. I'm not going to lie, because you said, don't throw it on the side of your head. I remember that to this day. Don't throw it on your side of your head. I don't want to pick up no one's ear. So I'm like, I'm going to take my time picking one. I'm going to let some other people test it out. You know, I'm skeptical. I'm like, I'm going to let some other people test it out. But when I threw that axe, I was like, I feel like a Viking. I turned to somebody. I'm like, I feel like a Norseman or something like this. I was like, imagine one of these things like coming at you during battle. Like there's nothing you could do. What were the shields made of? Like metal and cheap metal and wood. Like huge thing coming at this. Like how do you get into this?
I personally got into it about 5.5 years ago after a trip to go visit my family in Orlando. An axe throwing business had just opened up. And, naturally as a man, I like anything having to do with weapons.
Oh, yeah.
When my mom was like, hey, we're going to go check this place out, right out of the gate, I kind of attached this stigma to it that it was just weird redneck, activity sport. And then when I went there, not only was the place extremely professional and set up in a really nice way, but they promoted it to us and kind of introduced it to us as a sanctioned sport.
Yeah.
So I think it was my second or third throw, I got a bullseye and I was hooked. And what I really liked was, with most sports, you have to be naturally just talented. You got to have God-given strength and ability.
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest guy in the world. I played sports growing up. But obviously, I'm not a professional athlete. Being able to pick up an axe and throw it based on technique
with
as
finesse,
opposed to strength, it was something I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And once I got into it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I started planning things out, and I came back home and, kind of just told myself, this is what I want to do. And I worked really hard at it. I became an expert of the craft. I started with a revenue plan. I worked nonstop, day in and day out. And, we came up with a really good product that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And it was 100% by the grace of God. There was a lot of things that led up to that point that just kind of led me in the proper direction and made things easy until we got to the point of COVID, and again, looking back on it, it kind of makes you wonder, well, that had to have also been God too, although it did affect everybody.
Yes.
The way it affected us was in a positive way, because had we opened up in December 2019 or January 2020, when we had originally hoped, we would have probably not made it through the pandemic.
Wow.
Because when you open a business, especially in a downtown corridor such as Fort Pierce, I mean, we're in the center of downtown Fort Pierce.
Yeah.
Tons of people. And in the last 6 years, Fort Pierce has become kind of like a entrepreneur's hub.
Wow.
I mean, economically, it's exploded. So many new businesses have popped up. An entertainment district is basically what it's become. And so, if we had opened when we originally wanted to and that pandemic hit, that momentum wave would have just crashed, and we would have had to lay off our employees. We would have had to continue to pay insurance. More than likely would have had to continue to pay workers' comp, even if they were furloughed. And then, there goes, all the excitement. So what happened was it was due to permitting that we couldn't open. We were dealing with some permitting issues because we're such a new business and it's never been done in our area before. The city and the county didn't know how to classify us, so they had to create new permits and new classifications for us in the city for our business tax receipt, or BTRs. So March 27th, we're supposed to open. The pandemic hits 10 days, prior to that. So now everything's shut down. We can't open. Well, what that did was that, during the time I was super depressed. I'd just spent literally from October until that point working on that place, physically working on that place, building it. And then for a whole year prior to that, planning it. Revenue plan, business model, demographic studies, becoming an expert of the sport, studying the sport, learning how the sport has evolved and learning the history of the sport, really becoming an expert of my craft.
Right.
So now all of a sudden I can't do anything, I had to really, really, really lean on God, and I didn't necessarily know that's what I was doing, for a really long time. And it gave me the opportunity to kind of create our marketing the way that got people excited. We were able to take time. The newspaper came out and did a story on us, which got some excitement going. And, not only that, thank God, ESPN played reruns of all their axe throwing during the pandemic.
Remember watching a episode, walking into your shop about that, and I saw the grand prize. I'm like, World Axe Throwing. There's no way. I saw the grand prize was $50,000 at the time for first place. What did you tell me a couple years or a year or so ago it was going for?
Yeah, that was that was either 2016, 2017. It's increased, quite a bit. I mean, they're talking about $500,000 prize here in the next year. So if that happens,
if I had a calling and a blessing I wasn't that good at it. And you're like, Kenneth, axe throwing like this. I have been plotting since we've left. I have been plotting and scheming to come back with my wife because I'm like, listen, like this thing is addictive. I don't know how to describe it.
It really is. And that's the same feeling I had.
Right.
And I couldn't get it out of my mind. And the thing is you said something interesting, that you were kind of intimidated at first. I felt the same way. And I can't imagine how everybody feels also, especially, coming in for their first time. Especially when it's in there loud and they hear people yelling and cheering and having fun. It's just when they take that first throw.
Oh yeah!
And all of that fear and anxiety, it's gone, and then it's just man,
you hear that axe hit the wood, and it's like, oh my gosh, this is fun. This is really fun. So, I mean, you even mentioned you had a job before this.
Yes, I was removing beehives for a living.
You are a man of literally, like, when I heard that, I'm like, this dude is like all things. I'm looking for the scariest jobs in the world, because there's no way you couldn't pay me enough. If somebody's like, Kenneth, $100,000 remove this beehive, I'm like, you're out of your mind. You can take that $100 and do whatever with it, because there's no way I could.
Yeah, it was exciting. I mean, you want to talk about an adrenaline-filled job that you really didn't know what you were getting into every day. I would show up at the shop. They would give me my list of jobs. I would have about 6 jobs, and I would look on them, and we would service anywhere from Daytona down to Miami.
Wow.
So I was driving to different places every day, and I got to do some really cool stuff, some really scary stuff, some really easy stuff. But like I said, I had this really just overwhelming, burning desire to do something more. Wow. And it wasn't until I went and experienced axe throwing for the first time, something just clicked. It's like a bell going off in my head. Mm-hmm. It said, okay, this is where you should be going, which is crazy to think, because that's not, when you talk about the idea in the professional world of business,
mm-hmm.
when you're in a room with you're in a boardroom and you got, a bunch of Fortune 500 CEOs around you, and they're all talking about, oh, we have software companies, or we have a distribution company, or we have a food company, or we're an axe throwing business. It's a weird profession to get into, but the business model has been proven over and over and over again. And the only way I was able to figure that out is by experiencing it for myself, seeing it firsthand, and then getting into it and diving into it the way I did. I mean, I really did have to become an absolute expert of that craft.
Yeah.
And like I said, with us not being able to open in March when we wanted to, we took that time from March until we finally opened July of 2020 to really get some excitement created throughout the community, because everybody was locked down. They didn't have much to do unless you were an essential worker. Everybody was kind of just hanging out. And with everybody getting kind of what's the word for it,
stressed
just
out.
kind of cabin fever. They wanted something to do. And when we were finally able to open at phase 2 on July 10th of 2020, let me tell you something. It was, even though it's 25% capacity, we were off to the races.
That's so good.
And it gave us the ability to, like I said, create the excitement and interest and kind of formulate the marketing around our business the way we wanted to, through trial and error without spending too much money. And then at 25% capacity, we were really kind of able to wean ourselves into it. And slowly taper to a good level before we hit 100%, because it went 25%, 50%, 75%, then we're at 100% capacity. Which, like I said, looking back on it, hindsight is 2020. God was 100% in control of all of that. And it wasn't until I started going to Christ Fellowship again, consistently, that I realized that. And what we did is, through the business, I have, and through all of my mistakes in social media marketing, I made very expensive mistakes. If anybody's in the world of business, you understand that you have two options. You can either hire a marketing firm or you can do it yourself.
Yeah.
It is probably cheaper to do it yourself if you know what you're doing. I didn't know what I was doing. So I made a ton of mistakes. And then once I figured out how to market the business in a productive way, I created a new business. So I actually have a social media marketing business. It's a side business, and I really only offer the services to other downtown Fort Pierce businesses. I am on the Fort Pierce Business Owners Association in downtown Fort Pierce, and I work with some of my fellow business owners. I run the downtown Fort Pierce Facebook page, which is a public page. I do all of the social media marketing for 3 other businesses. I won't name them, only because it's we don't have any contractual agreements. Well, we do, but it's not, I don't have a official business name under Sunbiz. But the point is that led me to other opportunities for revenue.
Because you stepped through that first door.
Yes. And, we also had to help create ourselves some passive income to help us through the slow season, which is summertime. And what we decided is that we were going to offer sponsorship slots on all of our lanes. We have 6 lanes in there, and we service probably close to 700 to 800 people a week. Not to mention the amounts of people that walk by. We're in a main thoroughfare in downtown Fort Pierce on the corner of Avenue A and 2nd Street, right across the street from Sailfish Brewing Company. That's a very busy intersection in downtown, especially for a walking district it is. And we were lucky enough to get a building that has 90-degree windows. So what we did is we said, hey, if your business wants to come in, you can sponsor one of our lanes. We'll put a banner up for you. We'll create the banner. We'll print the banner. And then you guys will be seen by all of our in-house customers, all the customers walking by. And then we take pictures of all of our customers when we're done. So their banner will then be on all of our social media platforms, as well as Google, Yelp, and TripAdvisor. So the subliminal advertising opportunities are massive. It took a little while to get off the ground, but once it did, I mean, we have I want to say 10 or 12 businesses in line right now. We do monthly and quarterly. Most of them have all done quarterly.
That's such a blessing, man.
Well, here's the real blessing is we were approached by a guy named Dan, who owns a business called Old Florida Coffee, and he's a member of Discovery Church. And he said, hey, Jules, I talked to Pastor Tim over there, and he's really interested in sponsoring one of your lanes. How do you feel about that? Well, being part of the downtown Fort Pierce Business Owners Association, anytime you mention God, everybody rolls their eyes. It's not an easy thing to reference God in these large business owners meetings because, they're all about just,
the dollar.
Yeah, 100% is the best way to say it. They're all about the dollar. And so you kind of sometimes have to kind of tread a thin line in the professional world. And with Dan, the owner of this coffee shop, being a devout Christian, when he mentioned that to me, I said, absolutely, I want to talk to him. So the pastor of Discovery Church, Tim O'Carroll, he came and talked to me and said, yeah, we really want to sponsor this lane. If you guys don't want to do the banner, let us create the banner. And I said, okay, well, let's do this. I'll create one and you create one. So I created one. Mine, was I thought it was great. It had a picture of a cross with a beautiful sunset dropping down behind it. It said Discovery Church with their address, their website, their phone number, their service times. Yeah. And I sent it to him, and he's like, man, that's cool. He's like, but I got a better idea. Yeah. And he sent me his, and all it said is, you are loved. That's it. So when we took that step and put that banner up, if this isn't God working, I don't know what is. Not only did we get busier, but more and more people started leaving positive reviews instead of negative reviews. One thing that business owners don't talk about is the negativity that they are faced with every day. There is always somebody out there that thinks that they can do it better than you, thinks they know everything more than you do. They don't realize the experience and the reason why you've come to the decisions you've come to. Yeah. They think that you just made them. No, it's all through trial and error. Most business owners are business owners because they're an expert at their craft, and it's probably not a good idea to question that because they know what they're doing. And then the opinions. And I've learned that most of that is either just jealousy, or just that person is unhappy with themselves. So when this banner went up, the idea was if we can get just at least one person to come to Jesus through this, then we've done our job. And that's when things started to turn in my mind. The very next week, the owner of the coffee shop, Dan, called me up and said, hey, we're going to create a men's business owners Bible study in downtown. I said, that's awesome. Being a business owner is one thing, but being a young business owner is very, very tough. Wow. The amounts of things that I go through and the stress I deal with is not the same as somebody else my age, right? Most people my age are just getting out of college and getting into their life and starting their own job and doing their thing. Their problems are not the same as mine, so it's really hard to find somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of that get it. Unless they're 20 or 30 years older than me. So when he mentioned this, oh my goodness, I mean, what a lifesaver. Now, not only am I going to have other men and other business owners I can bounce ideas off of, but it's also Christian business owners who get the constant pull between should we do it for money or should we do it to honor God? Which is, I mean, it's tough because your livelihood's at stake. And
talk about trusting God through that. Talk about the integrity of having to walk with, and even some of, talking through some of your prayer life, what that has to do with making business decisions.
Now it's everything. In the beginning, it was just, I would kind of, like I said, I had these gut instincts, and I believed that was, the voice of God talking to me. I think everybody has it. Because there's nobody that I've ever met, and probably nobody in this world who has not said, follow your gut, and your gut is always right. Well, it might not be your gut. That's more than likely God telling you, hey, no matter what you believe and no matter what religion you believe, that more than likely is God telling you, hey, you need to go this way or you need to go that way. So that was kind of how I would make decisions and stuff. Now I feverishly pray. I nonstop pray about it, especially if it's a big one. We have some big things coming up, and we've had to make some also really, really tough decisions in the past, especially the first year we were open, like I said, we went July of 2020 all the way back around July of 2021. That summer of July of 2021, from I'd say June till about August. For those who don't know, downtown Fort Pierce, our season is really November to about April. Everything in between is dead, and it is hard. We got so tight. Things were so tight, and we had to make some really hard choices. And, you always hear stories of people praying that are in tight financial spots, and all of a sudden, boom, a check shows up. And you're like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Like, who randomly is going to write us a check? So we had put an extension in to do our taxes. So we ended up filing our taxes later than usual. And we were, when I say a tight spot, I mean things were tight. You have the cost of wood, which is our largest cost, has tripled since we've opened.
Yeah.
The cost of labor has consistently gone up and is going up until it finally reaches $15 an hour every year. That's gonna cripple some business owners, and it's not because people don't deserve to be paid that much. It's the idea of supply and demand.
Yeah.
It's hard to understand unless you have a balance of business and economics. So we're in this spot where we don't know what to do, and we're praying, and I'm praying, and I'm praying, and I'm praying. I'm just saying, God, I know that this is going to be okay. My prayer wasn't that, hey, God, fix this.
Yeah.
My prayer was, God, help me to believe you and that this is going to be okay. Man, like a few weeks, not even a couple months, a few weeks after we had filed our taxes, man, I went and checked the mail, and I opened up the mailbox, and there's a check there, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I honestly didn't think it was real, so I called up my accountant, and I'm screaming on the phone. I'm like, David, don't play games with me. Please tell me this is. He's like, what do you? He's like, you have a check?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And he's like, is it for this amount? I said, yeah. He goes, oh yeah, no, that's real. I'm like,
wow.
Are you? And he even goes, how did you already get that?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. You did my taxes. I don't know. He goes, listen, Jules, I got to tell you, I have businesses who filed 4 months before you, and they haven't even gotten their check yet.
Wow.
He goes, he goes, I literally don't understand it.
Wow.
And all I can say is it was God. I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
And we were able to get through that. And then, consistently just from there, it's about praying for, strength and wisdom and courage, and not so much for something specific, because I believe God specifically gives us opportunities, and he already knows what those are going to be.
Yeah.
But it's our job to pray for the strength and the courage and the wisdom to understand and separate worldly opportunities and eternal opportunities and which path to go. Yeah. We're going to go the way he wants us to go no matter what. Yeah. But the sooner we get there, the better off I think it'll be for us. So yeah, I mean, success to me used to be measured in, how well you did in community stature, if you were able to have a comfortable living, all this. I no longer believe that. I think success has to do with just not failing each day. Wow.
Wow.
As
Say
long
that
as,
again.
Yeah, I truthfully, at least in business, know, if you can avert failure every day, then you're successful. Wow. And if you keep your goals short term, they're always achievable. And there's a few things, if any business owners out there are believers, there's a couple of different Bible verses that I have that have helped me in a big way. Currently, we're studying the book of Romans in a Bible study that I do. And this is actually from Romans 12, verse 2. And it says, do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. If that doesn't kind of scream at you what I just said, then I don't know what does. Because at the end of the day, too often, especially right now, look at the patterns in the world. What are they telling people to do? I mean, through
chase money.
Yeah, chase women. Money, chase women. You're not cool unless you have all these followers on Instagram and Facebook and this and that. That's craziness. That's craziness. That is not what God intended. Wow. And when you talk about worldly things, you're basically, the moment that you start being consumed with the idea of popularity, money, anything like that, that's idolatry in its definition. Wow. It's not something that is going to give you happiness. How many people have heard the saying, more money, more problems? It's true. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Happiness is what it's about, and comfortability in who you are as a person. And I've found that for me, the moment that I just fully submitted and said, all right, God, you take everything. I am so sick of trying to control it myself. Yeah. I'm a control freak by nature. I am over it.
Amen.
Man, the moment I did that, everything changed.
Yeah.
I mean, everything. And it doesn't mean that everything's easy. It just means that I know deep down, which means I have the faith. Faith is important. I know deep down that God is going to take care of everything, that everything will work out the way it's supposed to, which isn't always the way you want it to.
Yeah.
But it will work out the way God intends it, and God's way is perfect.
Yeah.
Your way is not.
Yeah.
Which is okay.
Yeah.
You know?
And and as a fellow control freak and making some recent decisions that have been very hard, I have to go to my knees more. I've had to pray more. Talk about the story of even us coming there, Pastor Mike praying over you a little bit.
So I took the journey class.
Yeah.
Right. So if for those who don't believe in God, I'm going to tell you exactly how God can work. I took the journey class, and it was something that I was signed up for. I originally wanted to do it, but the person who I signed up with, she wasn't able to attend. So I had this choice. Okay, I can either go alone or I don't go at all. So I just said, hey, I'm going to go. We're going to go see what happens. So I just so happened to be sat at a table with a guy named Bob.
Yeah.
Bob and his wife, I think her name is Jane. I could be wrong, but I really connected with Bob. He was great. He started talking to me about who I am, what I do, and he was intrigued by the fact that I was young and I owned this business, and he couldn't stop thinking about it because he was an entrepreneur growing up. So Journey is a 2-week class. For those who don't know, it's 2 Sundays back to back, and you kind of learn who you are as a person and how you can serve based on a spiritual assessment, which is awesome. You also learn the fundamentals of what the church does and how they operate, where they can plug you in. If you choose, you get a chance to connect with a ton of people, learn about a ton of groups. I highly recommend it for anybody. It was awesome. I mean, really was awesome. And so my second week, Bob comes to me and says, hey, I want to make sure that we don't lose, contact. I said, great. So about a couple weeks go by, and I'm at work, and he shoots me a text. He said, hey, are you working? He said, yeah. And he's like, all right, I want to come by. So he comes by, he takes a look at the shop. He thinks it's awesome. He says, man, I want to, I can't promise you anything, but I'm going to, talk to a few people, and I'd love to kind of get you, involved. So I said, cool. And during that time, I had also put in some prayer requests about honestly 6 months before that, and Pastor Mike was the one who answered them, and he called me up, told me, asked me what I did. I told him I was this business owner, and he says they have a business owners group that meets the last Tuesday of every month, and I'm like, oh, cool, maybe I'll come. So fast forward to this time where Bob and I are standing in my shop, and Bob mentions that he's going to try to talk to some people. So I said, thanks. I prayed that, hopefully maybe a few people can come and hang out. If not, it's just good to connect with another fellow Christian and be able to bounce ideas off of. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from a weird number, and I listen to the voicemail, and it's Pastor Travis. Saying, hey, Jules, I've talked to Bob, man. He says you're a great young man. I'd love to meet you. I'd love to connect with you and talk to you a little bit. So I ended up going to a church and meeting with Pastor Travis. We had like a 2-hour-long conversation, just him and I. Talked about all sorts of stuff. Through him, I decided that it'd be a good idea to take the Foundations of Faith class, do a couple other things, and I just figured, great. At the very least, him and I are now connected. With him being the pastor at our church, I growing up in a smaller town, or not really, Orlando's a big town, but a smaller sub-city in Orlando, and being raised by all Southern women, it was very important that you kind of knew the pastor of your church. That's how it was for them. Our pastors would come over and hang out. And so it was nice to be able to get to formally meet him and connect with him, and we have a lot in common. And
so we show up there.
Well, so this is what happens, right? So he calls me about, 3 weeks later and says, hey, I got an idea. We have these staff meetings that we do on Thursdays, and the staff doesn't know, but I'm going to tell them that we have a meeting, and we're actually going to come and throw axes. Can you put this together? Now, mind you, this is on, I think, a Monday. And I said, okay, we don't usually open till 4. They wanted to come by 10:30. I said, okay, let me see if I can get some staff in there. Normally, my staff would say, absolutely not. We're not coming in early. Not going to happen. You guys had like 20 or 25 people or 30 people.
Yeah.
I can't do that myself. So I prayed about it. My staff decides to come in, which blew me away. I also had a Bible study that morning, so I was able to pray with my Bible study guys. And you guys, we were able to get it set up. You guys showed up, and let me tell you something. You guys, hands down, were one of the most fun groups.
A rambunctious group.
Rambunctious, fun, exciting. I mean, what axe throwing is really all about. And the best part is most groups, I mean, we've hosted, massive. We've done Dyer Chevrolet. We've had their Fort Pierce location compete against their Vero Beach location. 80 people, absolutely insane. Rowdy car salesmen, they're nuts. But a lot of these groups, they need direction. They need somebody to kind of point them and say, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. With you guys, man, it was almost like everything just flowed. And it was interesting because none of you guys had really done it before. So I was able to explain everything, me and just one staff member for all you crazy people. And we were able to explain everything. You guys jumped in. You created your own game. You created your own tournament. You guys went at it, and it was awesome. Awesome. So the fact that we were able to get it done was great. And then as you guys were leaving, Pastor Mike comes up and he says, all right, guys, let's go ahead and pray for Jules. Not only did he pray for me, we prayed for my staff member who is not a active believer. And you guys put your hands on me. You guys all prayed. It was super powerful. And that weekend, that Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night was, till this day, our busiest weekend we've ever had.
So crazy.
Not to mention, my staff member has been talking to me actively about wanting to go to church, wanting to see things.
So good, man.
Which is something that I haven't really told anybody. I think I told Pastor Travis, but I haven't really told too many other people about it. Because again, obviously, that's his thing. I've never been one to, I guess, force the idea of Jesus at anybody or religion. I think at the end of the day, I can just tell you what's happened in my life and how things have changed. I've become more calm. I've become more okay with everything else. My finances have been in check. My mentality has been in check. My faith has been in check. I've learned to let go of things. I've learned to trust God more. My business has been doing great. The people in my life. Pastor Todd talks often about right people, right habits. I did not understand. I'm like, how do I do that? How do I find the right people and then do the right habits? One thing we're talking about in our Bible study is that God does the work for you. When you're born again, you are a new person. That old you dies and that new you comes. So you're basically starting over in life. And as you develop these things through experience and through different opportunities God has provided, you start to slowly shed all of that old off of you and become new. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, just the same life is. Well, one day I'm looking around, I'm in my Bible study, I'm like, okay, I'm surrounded by 5 Christian men who are business owners who really kind of keep each other accountable and keep each other in check. Not to mention, I'm noticing that I'm not getting angry at things. I'm not getting annoyed with people. I have a huge problem with judging people, especially in traffic. I've talked about this plenty of times. I'm not kidding. When I tell you, Kenneth, it is a serious issue.
Confessional time. We're just going to confess on the podcast. I talk under my breath a lot about people, and I tell my wife all the time. She's going to hear this and laugh. I tell her all the time, I need to open a driving school. Because nobody's teaching people how to drive. Nobody's teaching people. I'm like, why are you going 30 miles in a 50? We're at least got to go minimum like 55, 60.
Man, I find myself, especially driving down the highway, say you got somebody who's cutting in and out of traffic real fast, I will find myself plotting against them, figuring out a way I can box them in. And then I find joy in the fact that, got him. He can't pass me. Got him. But what I've had to do lately is really take a step back and think, okay, maybe that person that's driving horribly and singing and going nuts, what if they have a family member in the hospital and they're trying to get there? What if they just got the worst news in their life and they are rushing to be with somebody they love? I mean, I have to really take a step back. What if the person driving slow has just been given some horrible news and they're just having a hard time just, focusing. Obviously, a lot of people would probably then say, well, to get them off the road. You might be right. But that's not our position to make that call. It talks about in the Bible, love thy neighbor the way you love thyself. That is extremely hard to do, especially when thy neighbor can be, a
slow driver,
either a slow driver or just a mean person. I don't know. Those are some serious things that I've had to grip with. So, and what I've noticed is, as I'm around the right people, the right habits are slowly forming, and it's just through constantly being open and honest with yourself about different things. The thing that I've learned is God sees everything, everything. And when we go to heaven, there's nothing that's going to be unknown.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to know everything about you. And if you're a person of secrets or lies or deceit or manipulation, sort it out now.
Yeah.
There's no better time, than right now.
Yeah.
And I was always under the impression that when somebody gets saved, they are instantly changed, right? Like all of a sudden everything changes instantly, right? Their life gets better. They all of a sudden, all of their old feelings and habits completely go away, this and that. That may be true for some people, but I'll tell you right now, for me, it is the complete opposite. Yeah. It is just like anything else. When I found axe throwing, I had to learn everything there was about it, and I had to become an expert of that craft. I've had to really kind of put my energy in the right direction. You still have to make a conscious effort. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be perfect, because that's a tall order. Yeah. And that stresses a lot of people out. They think you have to be Christ-like. Well, nobody's Christ-like. Yeah. We're all born in the image of sin because Adam sinned. He chose to sin. He was born in the image of God, and then he introduced sin to the world. And when that happened, it is in our bloodline. There's nothing we can do about that. Yeah. That is why God sent his only son to die for us and our sins, because he knew that we were so utterly broken and we were under his wrath. Yeah. You can go on and choose to sin daily, but you will be under God's wrath. Yeah. And it is a loving wrath, which is hard for people to understand. Yeah. For me, I've had to put the effort in, meaning I just have to be subconscious about the things that I'm doing and maybe take a second thought or a second glance and say, okay, this isn't probably what I should be doing or how I should. And it's interesting because you'll feel it too. Like I said, we were talking earlier about your gut. You feel it. When it's not right. Yeah. Like I said, the book of Romans talks very heavily about different things and why things happen. Yeah. And it all really boils back to the same thing, that Adam brought sin into the world. And through sin, we as people were broken. Now that we're saved, it doesn't mean that we can just go off and sin and say, well, I'll do this now and I'll just ask for forgiveness each day and be good. Over time, if God is chasing you down as you are chasing him down, if you are, and if you're not, trust me when I tell you, if you look back and you really think about it, look at how many moments in your life that you probably were saved from a bad situation, you were given a second shot or this or that. There's going to be moments when you really think about it, like, man, okay, God was talking to me right there. He was trying to help me here. He was showing me this there. He was doing that with that person there. He was removing this thing from my life for that reason. It's interesting. Yeah. So I don't mean to get off topic.
No, you're great. I think that's all great. What I'd love for you to do, I'd love for people to come out. We have these flyers you gave me, so I'm going to be passing these out like candy. Tell people, you mind telling people where your business is and where it's located, what the times are, where they can find you on social media, all of that.
Yeah, 100%. So our business is called the Hard Axe Lounge in downtown Fort Pierce. We're located at 200 North 2nd Street, Fort Pierce, Florida, 34950. We're right across the street from Sailfish Brewing Company, a couple doors down from Taco Dive. Like I said, right in the heart of downtown Fort Pierce, right in the action of all of it. You can find us on Facebook at the Hard Axe Lounge, at Hard Axe Lounge, and Instagram at Hard Axe Lounge, and you can visit our website at www.hardaxelounge.com.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys have not been axe throwing, I'm going to say this again. One of the most addictive things I have ever gotten the opportunity to do. Is there anything you'd like to close with? Any scripture? Any thoughts?
I think that a couple things that made sense to me when I was younger is just that life is going to throw curveballs at people, and it's going to be hard. In business, you have to weigh a risk and reward situation all the time.
Yeah.
There is no greater reward in the world than challenging and pushing yourself. For those of you who sit out there and are waiting for the world to come to you, stop, because it won't. The sun is going to rise tomorrow and it's going to set tomorrow. You got to go out there and you got to do something. What I would say is nothing is impossible, and with God, all things are possible. So if there's something that you want to do and there's an idea that you have, if there is something that you have this desire or passion for, give it all you've got. Don't worry about the likes, the followers, the money. All of that will honestly come. People, it's not about if people like you. The best advice that was ever given to me in my entire life is only 90% of what happens to us. The other 10% is how we react to it. So I'm very grateful. I'm very blessed. It's so good to have good people and good Christians in my life. And I know that God is continuously doing work. And I honestly, a lot of what I said, I think just kind of came through and came out. And I really appreciate you sitting down with me.
Yeah, I'm so thankful that you got to join us, and I'm so excited for our generation being so entrepreneurial, and for so many people to be able to hear this podcast. And we're praying that it touches somebody.
You know what? One last thing. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Good.
I want people to know something too. If you are young and you have a good idea, when I tell you it's not impossible, I want you to go and look in downtown Fort Pierce. They're not all Christian businesses or Christian business owners. We have about 6 to 7 entrepreneurs and businesses that are ran by business owners under the age of 30 in downtown Fort Pierce now that are successful, that have been there for years.
Come on.
If that is not a sign that you can do something and get out there and take life by the horns and do what you want to do with it, I don't know what is. It is such a refreshing thing. You can go to TC Palm's website and look up entrepreneurs or millennial businesses in downtown Fort Pierce, and there's a whole story about it. And it really is incredible to see how our generation has just stepped up in such a big way and kind of put this nasty millennial stigma to shame and said, oh wait, we're lazy? Okay, watch this.
And go out and crush it. And you guys are doing absolutely that.
I really appreciate it.
I'm so thankful for you, and you'll be looking forward to having me and some of, hopefully, our listeners pop in and come into the shop, because it truly is a fun time.